Good evening and welcome. Is Kimberly online yet?
Joining us online.
Okay. Do we have quorum? I mean, this.
Yes.
Yeah. Welcome, everyone. I will call this meeting to order at 5:02. And can we have roll call
Committee member Beatty,
here?
committee member Anderly,
Here.
committee member Andrews,
Here.
committee member Abels, and council liaison Prokop.
Thank you for joining us, Heidi. Okay, we need a motion for the consent agenda. I'm waiting for a motion
Motion to approve January minutes.
in a second.
I'll second.
And we need to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. I just wanted to also say really quick, this isn't on our agenda, but Nicole and I took out, how many do you think we took? Maybe 15
Between 15 and 20, I would say. That's quite a bit.
boxes of Narcan last
Thursday.
And we gave the leftovers, which were just a couple, I think, to Mads.
Perfect.
And then I heard back from the county today. They are going to send me in the mail the window decals that we didn't have because they had run out, and the face shields for doing CPR. The first group of businesses that we took out to had those, but the county had run out of them. So anyway, so they're going to mail me those, and then I told them I'd get them to the businesses somehow. Try to remember. Maybe we'll have another walk around.
Yeah.
Okay. So our goal setting. Mads, are you wanting to lead us on that, or I'm trying to
For the goal setting. Yeah, I included the committee goals from last year. On that, it's the second sheet of paper, third page, technically. With the previous year's goals, it's that time of year, we just need to look at these, see what we want to keep, what we want to add for the next year. I believe we were going to do sort of a rough discussion today and then finalize next meeting.
Yes, that's right. Mads had to remind me today about our conversation. I'm getting old. So it looks like we've done quite a bit on our goals. We did table at some events. I wonder if we should write, let me see, discuss. We didn't table at a city council town hall, but we did table at least one of the concerts last summer, didn't we?
Yep,
Two,
couple.
two
I
of
thought
them.
it was 2, right?
Yeah,
The-
we
one of the
tabled it.
football games. Yeah, I think we need to also reevaluate the community engagement toolkit. I mean, clearly, some things are in flux. So the engagement piece seems a little bit up in the air. And that would also apply to a listening session. I mean, I guess that's sort of where we're headed with council as well.
Yeah.
And we could also sort of revise a one sheet and just do more information gathering. If there is an effort to, or they're planning to create a DEI committee for the high school. And that was something that we could participate with parallel to moving forward. I think that would be beneficial as well.
Mm-hmm. And while we're on that subject, I was supposed to tell you guys this. So we are having a workshop. Is that what you call it? Workshop with the city council, February 24 at 5 p.m. So please write it down. Please attend because I don't want to be the only one there. And then they'll be voting after that workshop.
It's at
Is
5.
that also the night of the city council meeting?
Yes. Yeah, so they meet at 6. We are having our workshop or whatever you want to call it, at 5. So, anyway, so yes, that would be essentially a listening session of some sort. But I agree with you. I think this needs to be more condensed.
Well, and because also what we're trying to do is reestablish next year's goal sheet moving forward and then
Right.
the budget
Mhm.
as well.
Mhm.
Mads or Elena, do you guys know when we need to have the goals solidified for the next year?
I believe we need to have them solidified and a budget put together next meeting so that we can turn it into staff in March
Okay.
for council approval in April.
Okay. As far as the budget's concerned, we've always had the $100 a month, $1,200 a year request, and we've yet to deploy any funds of the city money. So I think that we could just continue that moving forward, since all that money is just in what, general fund or whatever. Is that how that works? Right, but I mean, you guys use it if it doesn't get spent, correct?
Not necessarily. So if you budgeted $1,200 and then and you don't spend the $1,200, that $1,200 doesn't necessarily get spent on something else. It just sits there. Is that what you're asking?
Potentially. I mean, I'm trying to understand the process. So I guess my question is, if we started the DEI 4 years ago and we've had a $1,200 budget every year, but we've never deployed any money, is it still the initial $1,200 per
No,
request?
no, it's every year you set a new budget and that is the budget for that fiscal year.
So what happens to the money?
So it's just in general fund. So
Okay.
if you don't spend the
That's what I was
$1,200, it
wondering.
just stays in general
Gotcha.
fund. Yeah.
Thank you.
And you did spend a little bit of money this year
Oh, on popsicles?
on popsicles.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
I remember that. Welcome, Elena.
They lived in my
Hi.
freezer and my kids grifted them. So that's probably a conflict of interest. I'm just putting it on public record.
Okay, so we need to, we do have NAMI here to present to us, so we need to work through this fairly quickly. Looking at the community engagement section, is there anything we should be changing in there? Marking as completed?
Are we planning to roll over the tabling events to this upcoming year? As a continued effort?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should just have that sort of
Yeah,
representation in the public eye whenever we have the chance. Obviously, that's a little bit more weather conducive than,
Yeah.
yeah.
not as many opportunities during the winter.
Okay, so we did not do number 2 in the community engagement. Do you think we should take that off since we already have a number 3 that's similar? We did not complete it by November.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that, I think it would still be worthwhile to try and engage with different organizations. I had briefly started a conversation with the lobbyist for the Grange and the head of the Springwater Grange, who was interested in just sort of participating in the listening and sort of seeing what we're doing. That hasn't taken shape yet. But honestly, I don't have personally any direct contact with any community churches. So might need some more boots on the ground to get that
Mhm.
accomplished. And the listening session, frankly, just to address, I think might be opening ourselves up for
Yeah,
a little bit of unnecessary discord.
so should we leave number 2 and take out number 3?
I agree with that.
I agree with that.
Okay. So Matt, you know where we are, right? Okay, so we'll take out 3 under community engagements. And then we're gonna leave 2 and let me see, we also didn't, well, we are still planning to go to LEDIC, right? Or have some
Mhm.
sort of connection with them through
Mhm.
Kimberly. But she's not here to talk to us about that, so maybe we should table that. So I will we'll talk about that next meeting, and then the toolkit. What was this for? Do you know what the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is?
The toolkit one.
Yeah, what is that? What was that for?
I think it was just strategically how we wanted to talk to and hear back from the community.
Oh,
It's a lot of this is just strategizing on how to integrate ourselves into the discussion. That's been a topic with being included in discussions and decisions that have been made by the council, which is bringing the lens of DEI into the conversation. Like I said, that's
what is the NHMP? Do you know what that was? That we have in the comments there?
I don't remember.
I think that was Elena, and
I wasn't here for goal setting last
Yeah,
year,
yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm not sure.
so I don't know, I don't remember what that stood for. Okay, so you want to keep the toolkit or
It's natural hazards mitigation planning.
Oh,
that's it?
That's all
Um,
coming back.
so the community engagement toolkit is specifically in reference to the
the
It was
mitigation.
about like
Correct.
putting the resources together.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and that was also part of the content that we included in the one sheet, as well as where you get your sort of emergency contact
Mhm.
information from, what your sources are. Yeah, I think that especially if we have partnership with the county, we should keep that intact. Because it's obviously continuing to be relevant and it just needs to be sort of developed and something that we can be a vehicle or a messenger for.
So haven't we completed that? If we did that for the NHMP, wouldn't we mark that completed?
I don't know if we have completed a delivery,
Oh,
a blanketed delivery method to getting that information out. I think that we've done some surveying about people's awareness of it. And then I don't think we've had a training from the county, but I know that we've had an exchange with the county about their mitigation plan. Essentially, that's whose plan we're using.
Okay, and we have a
Um,
survey on our webpage right now too, so
I believe so.
wouldn't that be part of that as well? Wow, maybe not.
But yeah, I think that we should continue with that effort.
I
Okay,
agree.
so, okay, because the meeting we have on the 24th, they're gonna be looking at this right over here.
Right. I think it's also just again to put on public record, worth asking the question hypothetically, if all of the other city-based commissions have this critical evaluation and sort of grade system that they're operating under.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
so, that's sort of seems like a level of scrutiny that is um, not necessarily balanced.
So, okay, that brings me back though to this column right here. We need to go down these items. And whatever we haven't accomplished, we need to decide, do we keep it on for next year? Logically, can we complete what our goal is in
Yep.
the next year? We really need to be looking at that because I feel like if we have like how you were talking about, well, it'd be great if we met with, churches or groups or whatever. But if we don't have, problem over this last year, especially last 6 months, has been keeping committee members. Now, that's been a problem, a commitment. And then not just being committed to coming to meetings, but actually engaging in what we're supposed to be doing on this sheet.
Right.
So I want us to really be logical and just, if we don't think we can do this, then it needs to be taken off, even though it might be a really great goal. If we can't complete it, like, I feel like we had big dreams and a lot of our dreams were never realized.
Sure. I mean, I think what you're saying is we just need to focus on things that we can accomplish so that we're not overshooting our goals and then having to explain ourselves afterwards, which
Right.
is absolutely efficient.
Yeah.
And I think that also, as far as the inclusion aspect and sort of equity aspect, the things that we've been working on with drug overdose prevention and Narcan distribution, and then the hazardous mitigation plan are all things that distinctly relate to everyone's experience who lives in the greater Estacada area, without having sort of all this whole other group of convoluted issues added to it that bring with it the stigma that we're trying to overcome.
Right.
So I think that focusing and making that a much shorter list, not a much shorter list, it's really only 6 things, but
Right.
maybe taking the 2 things out of there
Mhm.
and focusing on that. And then we can get traction, whether we have a full commission of 7 or, a sort of a short staff
Mhm.
of 3 or 4.
Okay, so if we go on that, from the community engagement section, which 2 things can we take out?
Well, the listening meeting,
Yeah, I took that out.
um,
And could we
can
combine?
yeah, we can keep tabling without any real significant effort. I mean, it's nothing more than
Mhm,
engaging with people and showing up at events.
mhm.
I think that maybe backing off of the groups and churches thing right now might be sort of in our best bet, because it's essentially cold calling all of these organizations. And, frankly, based on sort of, again, the stigma that we're trying to overcome, I think we might be better served with those 2 sort of concise issues.
So, and we can also add, when we have some connections with different groups and churches, we can add those into our networking number 4, essentially, kind of the same thing. So Matt's 2 and 3 can be taken off that top section. And then let's see, engage with students, organize a youth council. We did that. Schedule meetings with school staff. Should we take that out? Because it seemed like when you reached out to them, it seemed really difficult because they're so busy.
Right, I mean, so Arlo has been appointed, and now he should be here this evening. But that is taking shape at the high school. I think that that's something that we could sort of let, develop sort of organically. As the school develops that program, then we can see how that takes shape and then see how we can potentially fit in and or, like I said, work parallel to them.
Mhm.
So I
Okay.
think we should always keep open the aspect of working with the school whenever possible. Frankly, kids have so many less barriers to entry as far as how they see through the lens that DEI is trying to bring things to light in.
Mhm.
So we should leave that door open.
Okay,
is my
so you want to
opinion.
leave it there?
That's my opinion.
Okay. And then work with committees, projects with other committees, organize a committee summit, which we did. We did not do, well, wait a minute. No, we didn't. We have not had it. We had it last year, right? I remember having one.
Yeah, it was in,
I think
January
it
or
was 2 years
February.
ago. The whole everybody, or when there's
No.
the chair and the
It was last year
vice
because it
from
was,
everybody.
yeah, it
it
was
was
me.
winter, right?
It was me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember we all met right here. And I don't think you could make that meeting. I couldn't remember. I can't remember for sure, but so that would have been 2 of 24 that we met. So Mads, that needs to be changed. That was our last meeting, was February of 24. Do we want to do another summit? Do we think that's valuable? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, does the summit have to be sort of organized by us, or is that something that?
No.
Could be showing goodwill if it's organized by
Yeah.
us and trying to get people to, I think the more people that we can get to say, I like what they're doing. I like that they're involved. I like that they organize stuff,
Mhm.
the better it is for us. And maybe the more that we do these, the more we get people to show up for our stuff.
Right, yeah, definitely participation, interaction is part of the issue.
Yeah.
And as far as the committee liaisons, I mean, we, at least when I've been participating with the Arts Commission, we talk about this kind of stuff. That was sort of initially where the conversation started about the accessibility with the walking paths at the Wade Creek Phase 2.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
there are certain things that have now, and that was definitely a effort that was championed by city staff directly to find a way of solving that issue because we had exhausted the resources and it wasn't included with the initial plans.
Well, so what I can do, I'll write myself a note to reach out to, see, Mads, would you be the one to, I don't remember how we tackled this last year. I think Elena may have sent out an email. To-
So I think she had like some dates and then everybody was able to say what
Yeah.
worked best for their schedule.
to the chairs and vice chairs. So maybe if you could talk to her first maybe and find
I
out.
can reach out to Elena and see how it was coordinated last year.
Yeah. That'd be great. And then you can let me know. At least we could get it scheduled because it was fun. I mean, we all sat around and talked about our goals and what we have planned for the year and stuff. It was a neat meeting.
That might also be a good time to coordinate with them on either networking, tabling together, that sort of a thing as well.
It's a good idea.
Very-
Okay, and then
Yep. Oh, Kim, are you raising your hand?
Oh, sorry.
Blink
I didn't
twice.
realize she had came in.
No.
Oh,
No, I've
no,
just been,
it's-
I've just been here listening to all of
It
you
was the
brilliant people.
cursor.
Yeah,
It was the
Okay.
cursor from the computer.
Welcome.
just me.
And
No,
then
but
as
I
far
fully
as-
support leaving the school piece on there. I think
Okay.
as we move through, and we build more connections, we'll be able to integrate really well in the school. And they already apply a lot of principles that we would be looking at. And so I think they'll be a really good partner for us.
Excellent, good. I agree.
And then I do go to all the planning committee meetings, and school board meetings. I haven't said anything, but I've just been listening out if there's anything for us to bring back. And I haven't had anything at the moment yet that we haven't discussed, but just to flag that I do attend those on behalf of the DEIC.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we could put a partially complete next to committee liaison because we had discussed that and we do have representation at least and relationships with all that. So as far as the report card goes, we could discuss that.
Okay,
And I'm looking at the last column of code updates. I feel like there's always discussion about codes and development and stuff like that happening at the city level. It's much more complicated than kind of some of the issues that we're trying to address. So, I mean, if it was something that came to our attention that was directly affecting someone within inclusivity or equity, then I think
Mhm.
that we could focus on that. But as far as like trying to tackle what codes need to be changed,
We haven't had anything brought to us. correct?
well, there was like the talk about the development on Lakeshore about first floor, third floor walk up elevators, like that kind of stuff. And it's like once you open that bag, you have to have the understanding of, again, Elena, that's her professional endeavor and she understands those things inside and out. So that's a little bit above our pay grade.
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
Yeah,
The original intent, that was actually one of the goals that we founded the DEIC off of, and it was meant to help us start looking at plain language in our code so people could actually understand what it said and what
Okay.
that would take. And also that anytime there was anything new in the code, that staff was bringing like an amendment to council in some way, one of the check boxes they had to check was to go through the DEIC so that they could understand if there was anything, they could flag things that other folks may not have thought of. And so what I hate that it's been on here and it's never moved, but I also feel like we haven't established that workflow with the city or have had the city bring a lot of stuff to us and kind of embraced this aspect of the work we were hoping to do. So I just wanted to add that context.
Can I ask you a couple further questions?
Please.
Do you have any ideas, creative ideas about strategy as far as our own inclusivity within those discussions or sort of details being worked out with the city? Because that's been not to be too pessimistic, but it feels a lot like they've been asking us, well, what have you been doing? And we've been asking to be included within everything that you just laid out. And we have yet to be included unless there's some kind of a specific request, like with the TSP. Do you have any professional angles? I mean, I know that you are very specialized in this. Do you have any professional angles about how we sort of get included?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact that having the DEIC is in the code, I guess I would have expected would have made it easier for us to be folded into kind of some of those processes that are built in. But So I don't know. I guess it would be a conversation with Melanie about what would be the most logical place for us to be able to try to check in, and maybe it's a threshold of certain projects that, reach a significant portion of our population, or, there's thresholds that we can ask that those kind of projects be brought to us, but I don't know if we've ever had that direct of a conversation. That's one I would be willing to partake in.
We actually have had
Oh, we have.
discussions.
Okay.
Yes. Since I've been on the committee, I know that when we added this to our goals, we had a pretty extensive, I thought, discussion with Elena at the time that they need to be bringing things to us. That's what I recall. And that's one reason it was on our goals, because we wanted to be included, wanted to be, and like Mike said, when this project came up for the apartment complex, they had talked about including us in anything that might come up with that project. But I really think it would be good, Kimberly, for you to be at the meeting February 24 at 5 o'clock, please, somehow, because I'm sure that this sheet is going to be thrown in our faces. And I really feel that your discussion, having the history that related to this, would be very valuable, especially as well as us on the committee that have been through discussions with the city council and Elena about these subjects and wanting to be involved. Please involve us. If there's anything you want us to review, please bring it to us. And yes, I remember Elena saying something about it being difficult, but if you have that history, Kimberly, it would be really helpful to have your viewpoint.
Yeah, we just need to be able to vocalize that.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that we need to scoot along here. So the rest of this we can probably talk about next month, but it was good for us to dialogue about this, because I do think that this is probably going to be a subject at the workshop on the 24th. So Kimberly, if you could be sure to be there, that would be really great.
Okay.
All right. Sorry for our long, lengthy discussion, NAMI. All right, we are moving along to, we didn't really do our budget, did we? We didn't even talk about that.
Samesies, probably. I mean,
Same thing.
as long as we have a popsicle fund for the summer.
Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so we are ready for NAMI to have a presentation. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I'm late. I presume you have a PowerPoint. And if not, I have the thumb drive. Sitting up here, that'd be good.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you.
But we do have a slideshow along with it, so. You don't have one of those clickers, do you?
I do not, but I'm gonna bring you over to this laptop.
Oh, awesome, that would be perfect.
Does our speaker have a microphone?
It makes it so much easier.
I don't think it's on.
Yes, he has a microphone, but it's not on yet.
Okay.
Testing area, wow, okay. That's loud, yeah. I guess I'm gonna have to speak softly. As long as I don't have to carry a big stick. Awesome. So thank you for the opportunity. Really do appreciate it. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Gary Marschke. I am the Outreach and Development Manager for NAMI Clackamas. NAMI is the National Alliance of Mental Illness. We are the Clackamas affiliate. We're an independent 501c3, and I'll get into all of that. We cover all of Clackamas County. So what I have here is a presentation about the basics around mental health, just to kind of give you a sense of some of the information that we share. with folks and some of the things that we find to be really, really important when it comes to messaging around mental health and wellness. So trigger warning, first of all, there is some information here about suicide. If that is an issue for you, or if you find yourself in any way, shape, or form triggered, please do take care of yourself. So these are the takeaways. We're going to talk a little bit about mental health statistics, facts and myths, how you can help individually, and how NAMI helps, some of the programs and services that we provide. So first of all, mental health conditions. 1 in 5 people is going to experience a mental health condition in any given year. That's a given. The most common diagnoses are anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, PTSD, and schizophrenia. Bipolar disorder and schizophrenia are considered psychoses. One of the big myths around mental health is that people with mental health problems are violent and unpredictable. And as you can see, mental illness is not a barometer, according to the National Threat Assessment Center. In fact, people with mental health issues are 5 times more likely to be a victim than they are to be a perpetrator. What we find is that most often it's a smokescreen for people who don't want to discuss other issues. There's no question that there are people with mental health issues that are violent and unpredictable, but that is not the barometer. It's usually taking something away from talking about something else. Financial stressors, unstable housing, and childhood trauma are the top 3 reasons why people do the kind of things that they do. Another myth is that children don't experience mental health issues. 1 in 6 kids in the ages of 2 to 8 years old is going to have some sort of mental, behavioral, or developmental disorder. Part of the challenge is it's very difficult to diagnose in those early stages because a lot of them are, the brain is still developing, and it really doesn't develop symptoms for the most part for a lot of major psychoses until you're into adolescence. But we do see that we're seeing suicidal ideation being expressed by children as young as 6 years old. Most common diagnoses, again, for kids, anxiety, depression, ADHD. With what's going on in schools these days and in our communities, it's not surprising. Some suicide facts. Okay, yeah, you're looking at more than 12 million people having thoughts of suicide in any given year. Almost 15 deaths per 100,000 population annually nationally. You can see it's 18.6 in deaths per population in Clackamas County. We're significantly higher than the national average. That is largely attributed to the lack of access to mental health resources. It's the 12th leading cause of death, and unfortunately, the 2nd leading cause of death among 10 to 24-year-olds. Some dangerous myths about suicide that are really important to stop propagating. Most suicides are caused by one trigger event. Absolutely not the case in most, vast majority of instances. It's a cascade of events. Things that happen over a period of time might culminate with one particular event that tips the balance, but it's not caused by one particular event. Most suicides occur with little or no warning. Unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because we're not well prepared to deal with it, we get lots of warning. Sometimes we're just not tuned in to pick it up. So we really need to be aware of some of the signs, symptoms, and signals, but we also need to be prepared to lean in and ask the question. Okay, we'll get to a little bit of that. But you do typically get warnings. I had one woman who was whose son died by suicide. She went to the gathering, celebration of life, and individually, nobody had a clue. Collectively, they all put it all together, and oh my God, there was a whole list of different signs and symptoms and signals. But any one particular individual didn't have enough information. It's best to avoid the topic of suicide. Absolutely not. If you suspect that someone is considering suicide, you want to bring it up. You want to use the word. Using the word suicide opens up the discussion. It really removes all the barriers. Suddenly, it's a non-judgmental conversation. So it's not best to avoid the topic of suicide. Bring it up if you feel as though it's an issue. Are you considering suicide? Are you considering taking your life? Do you have a plan? Do you have the means? Those are all questions that you want to ask directly if you suspect. And there's lots of ways for you to learn different ways to ask the questions and deal with it. People who talk about suicide don't do it. It's really common, especially among younger folks, to consider it to be something manipulative. And sometimes, depending on how it's said and the context it's used, it is. But it really doesn't make do anybody any good to ignore any of the signs or signals. If someone is talking about, much less threatening, suicide, you want to take it seriously, period, regardless how often it happens or who it is. You really don't want to avoid in talking about suicide with someone who talks about it, brings it up. Suicidal person clearly wants to die. This is probably one of the biggest myths. We've all heard of the Golden Gate Bridge. They did a study of the Golden Gate Bridge suicide survivors because it's very, very common until they put a net underneath. Very, very common place for folks to attempt suicide. And they had some survivors that they interviewed, and then they later expanded it to other survivors of suicide. And they found that almost to a person, everyone who attempted suicide and survived, they said the last thing they thought about was, oh my God, this is not what I want to do. What they don't want to do is they don't want to die. They don't want to end their life. They want to end the pain. And it's the physical, psychological, emotional pain that they're feeling, and they can find no way out, which is why intervention, leaning in, asking the question if you suspect, can often make the difference. We can't prevent all suicides, but boy, we can prevent a lot more of them than we do by using the tools that we've gotten by leaning in. Those are some suicide myths we want to stop propagating. So is there anybody in the room here that's had a suicide experience? Friend, family, anyone you know? Okay, it's almost 2/3 of the room typically when that happens. So we know that it affects everyone because there's another myth is that suicide only affects people with a mental health condition. And we know that that's not the case. Most often you feel things like guilt or failure. You failed them somehow. How did I not know? Anger or resentment about why did they do this to me? Why did they do this to our family, our friends? And then lots of confusion around why they did it. And then, of course, the distress of just having lost someone that you care about for something that you think you might have been able to prevent. So how can you help? Right, so spotting the signs, there's lots of different signs here: agitation, aggressive behavior, being withdrawn, visibly depressed, things like that. When you see any of those as unusual behaviors, not usual behaviors, but unusual behaviors, it's time to prick your ears up and pay attention. Right, how do you intervene? The best way to intervene is calmly approach. Are you okay? Great question to ask. Are you okay? You don't seem to be yourself. Sometimes, if it's appropriate, is there anything I can do? Actively listen without judgment. You're not thinking about doing anything stupid, are you? You don't want to do things like that. You don't want to say things like that, in spite of the fact that you might think that it indicates you care. Okay, you really want to listen with empathy. You are not there to fix the situation. You're there to listen. You're there to let that person know they're not alone. Okay, that's really what you want. So listening is really, really very, very important. And then you want to recommend help. And if you have any questions, any issues, you call 988. 988 is the new 911 for anybody that's experiencing or involved with someone who's experiencing a mental health crisis. And that's a really important number to remember 24/7. You can get all the information you need, all the assistance you need, local resources. They can also, most importantly, tell you when it's time to call 911. You do not in most any circumstance, unless there is really a weapon pointed at you or you feel like you are imminently in physical danger, you don't want to call 911. You want to call 988 first and let them tell you to call 911 if it's time. Okay, so 988 is a great resource. There's also local folks. I really don't know for sure if, let's say Estacada doesn't have their own police department, right? It's the sheriff's department. Sheriff's department has crisis intervention trained mental health folks on staff. So you really can get a crisis team out through the sheriff's department whenever you call. You also want to ask for a CIT, crisis intervention training officer or officers when they come out. Okay, especially if you know for sure it's a mental health crisis. Give them as much information as you can about the individual that you're calling about so that they're prepared when they show up. You really want to know who your local resources are. And then when you're talking with that person, and sometimes you can get that person on the phone with 988 and they can talk them down. But if you need to, you just really want to offer options for support. Would you be willing to participate with me, partner with me to get you the support you need? The worst case scenario is to just leave them alone. And you don't want to do that. You want to be with them. You want to make sure that they know they're not alone, even if it's just a matter of, can I check back with you in an hour or in a day or something like that? So you really want to make sure that you are connected with that person in some way, shape, or form on a continuous basis, at least until they're out of that crisis. And make sure that they're willing to follow up and you're handing them off to a trusted resource. And then, of course, there's, like I said, there's 988. Now, things to know about 988, it is area code specific. So if you're calling from a phone that has an area code outside of Oregon, you're going to get connected to that state's resources, and that state's line. So you want to let them know you're calling from Oregon so that they can connect you. You'll get the same advice, the same information, the same help, but you won't necessarily get local resources. And again, remember, you're not going to get in trouble calling 988 if it's not an emergency. If you think you're going to run into a situation, or you just have a question about a situation you ran into, and what if you run into it again? Call 988. That's what they're there for. Okay, so 988 is open to everyone all the time. And there's some local Estacada resources. It's in that PowerPoint that I sent to you guys. So there's some information there about some resources that you can also call locally. So those are some Estacada resources. And then the big Estacada resource that I'm here to expose you to is NAMI. Okay, so how NAMI helps. So I got a question for you, and I have in my bag. I'll go back and grab one for somebody who can come the closest to answering this one. The average time between the time when someone suspects they might have a mental health issue and the time that they actively seek help. It is years. Give me a number.
5 years.
5, 6,
3.
up,
7.
up,
10
7,
years.
up,
10.
10. Okay, that'll be closest. Okay, 11 years. 11 years is the time between the time you recognize you might have an issue and the time that you seek help. And it comes down to one particular word, and that's stigma. It's not access, it's not cost. That's always an issue, but it's really not that. It is stigma. Okay, so that's the answer. I will make sure you get your official NAMI Clackamas stress ball. It's guaranteed to remove all stress and anxiety in 30 minutes or less, or you're going to get your money back. So the way we cure stigma is we change the conversation. All right, we talk about it, bring up the question. Okay, are you okay? All right, that's really the biggest first question to ask is, are you okay? You change the language. You know, our language around suicide really matters. What we've found, and you might have noticed this in the media, that people, when they refer to someone who died by suicide, they don't use the word commit anymore for the most part. I've heard it very rarely. It's died by suicide. They took their own life, because commit really is a negative connotation. You commit crimes, you commit sins. People get committed. Okay, so it really can have a negative connotation, and it really does often squelch a conversation when you use words that are prejudicial like that. The other one is referring to the person as their disease. Okay, say, oh, that person's schizophrenic, that person's bipolar. They are not their disease any more than they would be kidney disease, heart disease, or diabetes. Okay, they are not their disease. The sooner we separate the person from the disease, the easier it is to deal with that issue in that particular crisis. So we don't want to refer to them as their disease. We want to refer to them as having schizophrenia, having bipolar disorder. And one of the worst is when people are sitting there and they're organizing their desk. And, oh my God, that's OCD. Hey, well, you know, people who have obsessive compulsive disorder have some real disruptive issues in their daily lives and do not appreciate being compared to somebody who's just organizing their desk. So it really is very prejudicial to use terms like that. So we want to change the language around it too, because that really does lend itself. Also, what that'll end up doing is changing the perception. One of the things that we do at NAMI is we share stories. We share stories in classes. We share stories in support groups. Why do we do that? Because it removes the stigma. It lets people know that they're not alone. And it gives people a chance to really understand that not only is recovery likely from a mental health issue, it's more likely than it is from diabetes, heart disease, or cancer. And people live long, healthy lives when they're properly managing their mental health. And what that does is it changes the outcome, stops the stigma, and allows us to cut that 11 years down to maybe 11 months, maybe 11 weeks, maybe even 11 days. Okay, so that's some of the things you can do. Has anybody here had an experience with NAMI of any kind? Okay, well, then this will be some news for you. We do nothing but peer support. All of our programs and services are delivered by people with lived experience. We've been at this since 1978, evidenced by the fashion sense in the picture. Tie-dye t-shirts are, we're all the rage. Okay, we've got 600 affiliates around the country, which means just about any county you're in, you're going to find a NAMI. Now, sometimes they're clustered. We'll have 3 or 4 counties. It'll be part of one affiliate. Most every one of us are independent nonprofits. So while we are affiliated with the national, they aren't a fiscal sponsor or anything. We're our own independent. Okay. We also have lots of success stories Coming in NAMI, I like that short one. Coming in NAMI support groups has brought me out of a foggy, depressed existence that has improved my quality of life. That's really what we're about, is improving the quality of life for people who are impacted by mental health issues, whether it's the individual or the family. We do classes. We have 3 basic classes. One is peer-to-peer. That's for people with mental health conditions. It's an 8-week class. They work on a recovery plan. It's taught by 2 people with lived experience. So they are peers in recovery as well. And they better understand the issues and their illness. NAMI Family to Family is an 8-week class for family members, anybody else, basically anybody who cares for or about someone with a mental health issue. It again talks about all the different diagnoses, works a lot on empathy. There's a couple of exercises to help people realize what it's like to hear voices while you're trying to communicate, those kinds of things. So we work a lot on building empathy, but we also work a lot in family to family on self-care, understanding that if you're not taking care of yourself, you're pretty much useless to the other persons that you're trying to care for. And then NAMI Basics, which we've rebranded Parent to Parent here locally, is for younger parents of younger kids. Again, I mentioned earlier that generally in the 2 to 6-year-old range, especially, it's really difficult to differentiate. And then even when you get from 6 to 13, 14 years old, there's a lot of things that are part of the maturation process that could be easily confused or could mask a mental health issue. And so we want to know how to tell the difference. And there's some ways that you might be able to tell the difference, not any definitive tests or studies, but ways you might tell the difference. The other thing we teach in that class is how to advocate for that youngster, because they don't have the voice, they don't have the words, they don't have the means to advocate for themselves. And the system, frankly, is really not still set up to deal with them very effectively. So we want to be able to advocate for them as well. And we teach that in that class. So those are our 3 classes. We also, this is typically the time I'll circulate around a newsletter sign-up list, but that wouldn't necessarily be appropriate in this particular context. We have 3 free support. We have free support groups, Connection Support Group, again, for peers with mental health issues. We have 3 of those on a weekly basis, 3 monthly family support groups. One of them is twice a month. The other one is once a month. And again, that's for family members to come together and talk about their issues with their loved one, with their family members. We have 2 family book clubs where we talk about books like I Am Not Sick, I Don't Need Help, which is a Bible for anybody who is dealing with someone who's got a mental health condition. We do a monthly LGBTQIA2S plus support group. We also have a Latinx weekly support group for our Spanish-speaking community that's culturally adapted with 2 facilitators who are from that community. And then we have a women-only support group. Those all came by demand from our folks that we reached out to and said, what can we do that we're not currently doing? Suicide Bereavement Group is not one of ours, but we host it. And that happens bi-weekly for survivors left behind by suicide. And then there's a Compassionate Friends group that's also done, I think that's once a month, and that's for anyone who has lost a child. So those are some of the support groups. We also have peer resource specialists, 3 of them on staff. Their job is very simply to take in anyone who calls in, drops in, comes in for any way, shape, or form, by appointment or otherwise, to help them not only navigate the resources, understand the resources that they should be accessing, but also walk through the process with them. So we don't leave them alone. We'll walk through it with them and make sure that they get the access that they need. And in fact, our peer support specialists in some cases have been with the same people for over a year, just to make sure that they get what they need. They aren't technically case managers, but boy, do they act like them. And so they're available at any given point in time, everything from trying to help them navigate the bureaucracy to find housing, not that we have any shortcuts, or healthcare, getting a bus pass or food stamps, something like that. So we also do a special project. We have support for adults in custody. We have a weekly mental health class, mental health and wellness for adults in custody in the Clackamas County Jail, and a weekly support group. So we're focusing on that. We're also looking to expand that to our women's prison at Coffee Creek. So that's something else that we do. We have presentations that we do out in the community in our own voice. I call the Ultimate Empathy Builder. It's where 4 pairs of people on video and 2 people live will tell their story. This is from discovery through recovery in 3 parts, and it's really puts faces with names and illnesses in that particular situation, and it really lets you know that these are real people. Mental Health Matters, that's kind of this presentation. We do lunch and learns with Mental Health Matters and In Our Own Voice. And then Ending the Silence is a program that goes into middle and high schools throughout Clackamas County. We've done about 2/3 of the schools in all the Clackamas County school districts at some point since we started doing this back in, I believe it was 2010. So we've really done a lot with that. And it's not a suicide prevention. It's more of a mental health awareness and information. But it really does help them deal with it. And we give them some tools to help them cope with the situation and their friends. And the best part about all this is that it is barrier free. There's no diagnosis, no referral, no insurance, no cost. Okay. It is the world's worst business model, which is why we use volunteers. We depend on volunteers to teach, facilitate, serve us in a variety of different ways. Virtually all of our teachers for all of our classes and all of our facilitators are volunteers with lived experience. And there's contact information for volunteers. We also, of course, do fundraising. And we have coming up in March our Stand Ups Against Stigma Comedy Night, where this year we have 5 stand-up comedians, all of whom deal with mental health issues. In fact, one of them said, try to find one who doesn't. And they all use it as part of the use humor, as part of their recovery. And they also talk about it in their stand-up routine. That's coming up in March. We have our NAMI Walk in May. I don't know if anybody's participated in that in the past. It's a great event, much smaller than it used to be because we don't do it on the waterfront anymore. They're not opening up the east side of the waterfront these days. So it's now in Peninsula Park in North Portland, but it's still a great event. It's a lot of fun. Party with a Purpose is our dinner auction in September. That's our big major fundraiser. Every year. We have lots of great items that go on auction. We do it online, we do it silent, and we do a live auction. And then we have our Champion Circle of monthly donors, sustainers. We started that 1.5 years ago with 3 people. We've now got, I believe the last count was 45. So we really are very, very pleased with the growth of that. And it starts at $10 a month. So it's really not something that is out of most people's price range. And in fact, we find that the people that you might think could afford it the least are the people that give the most. And we also offer free mental health support through an organization called peers.net for anyone in the 13 to 30-year-old age range. We find that group is particularly underserved. And so this is online peer support for folks within that age group. And they can get it free for at least the first 10 sessions if they go to peers.net and click the NAMI Clackamas button. And they've been known to just continue to extend it as long as it's needed. So that's really it. That's it for me. That's all I've got as far as what we do in a coconut shell. And open it up to any questions, including that little guy is my peer support specialist at home.
Oh,
Little guy's named Carlin.
oh.
Anybody tell me who he's named after?
George Carl.
George, there you go. Got two now, 2 stress balls to hand out. We had 2 litter mates prior to him. My wife is the one, my family member that has chronic depression, a couple of other diagnoses I'm not authorized to share, but she was a particularly low point when we got the first 2 guys, the litter mates that we lost a couple of years ago. And I brought them home and they were just all over her. And she was just giggling and smiling and laughing and in the best of moods for weeks. And so we were figuring out what to name them. And we really didn't know what to name them. We were bouncing around different ideas. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, they are the best mood enhancers money could buy. So we named them Prozac and Paxil. That's why when we got this guy, pharmaceuticals were kind of off the table, but he still made us laugh. So we had to call him Carlin. But anyway, I'm here to answer any questions you might have. I also have some flyers, a trifold and a crisis communication card, which is things to say and places you might refer people to that have might be in crisis. I'll just leave them here for you to distribute
That'd
and
be great.
do with that as you will. There are more of them where they came from if you need more.
That's great. Thank you. Wow. We really appreciate your
I
presentation.
hope I didn't move too fast or too slow. No.
No. This was perfect. I do have a question about the 655-8585 number. Is
Yep.
that a direct line into Clackamas County?
Yep, that's a direct hotline and it will get you the local resources as
And
well. So that's definitely is anywhere as good as 988. They don't answer 24/7,
oh, okay. So they're like a 9 to 5?
pretty
Okay.
much.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
All of the different contacts and resources that you shared are also available on social media as far as just a list of information and stuff like that. I mean, this is fantastic. and I'm thinking about just people in my own life that need access to this.
It's on our website as well. You'll find resources on our website. It's also in the PowerPoint that I shared.
Perfect.
So you've
Yep.
got all that
That's
as
great.
well.
That's great. Just figuring out where I can find this.
And if you
We're
have
moving
any
forward.
questions, 503-344-5050.
Okay,
That's us, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you got and send you wherever you need to go.
amazing. Yeah, that's great.
Any other questions?
No questions for me, but thank you for this.
Yeah.
This is an excellent presentation.
Oh, you are very welcome. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for your
And I'm going to
time.
stop sharing. So there.
Okay.
All right. Do you want this left open? And I'm going to shut this off. All right, thank you.
Thank you
Thanks so
so
much.
much.
Good night.
So, Nicole wanted to talk to us a little bit about some experiences she has been having in relation to bullying in our schools. So we're going to give her some time to talk.
Just really quickly, my son is at the middle school and I know they're doing like some type of bullying program, but he's been getting, he wasn't even for sure that it was bullying because it was surrounded around race. And so he didn't know because I didn't think I should have to educate him on being called inlet was an issue, or people calling him monkey was an issue, or comparing him to the asphalt was an issue. And so wasn't quite for sure how to handle it, but then I remembered I'm on the DEI board. We shouldn't be talking about this. We should be going to the meetings and having conversations. Because while some of it did feel like bullying to me, a lot of it was just flat out ignorance. And it seems to just be pervasive in our city, just to be honest. Love living here. Haven't had a negative experience personally until this moment, but it was really heartbreaking because we knew that something was going on, had been asking, and then out of the blue, the dam's open. And he probably talked to me for about 2 hours. We were up till probably about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And these are people that he says are his friends. And so to me, maybe they don't know how hurtful some of this stuff is, because maybe they just heard that stuff in passing. But with the current climate that we are in, I think it is very important that what we do as a committee is tied in with the school board and what they're trying to do. And that we become really strong partners with them in saying that this is not who Estacada is. This is not what I was presented when we moved in here. And I don't want that to be the legacy of Estacada. It's ugly, it's disgusting, and we shouldn't be going for it. The parents should not be going for it, and I'm not going for it. So I brought it up because I feel like, we can sit in on a meeting and say, hey, we're here as a committee. How can we help you guys get this education piece correct so that other kids that are coming in, because there's not a lot of us, but he's not the only one that has had comments like this made to them. And at this age, they like to bury it. They don't like to express it because his thing was, these are my friends. I don't want to be targeted. I don't want to get people in trouble. And so I want to honor that, but also I don't want to, pull him and leave it for somebody else to clean up.
So my question would be to you, Nicole, that how would we as a committee be able to support you in going to, like, when is the next meeting? Do you know?
I honestly, I haven't been to
School
any
board,
of the
so
school
you're-
board meetings at all.
I think they're
We're
twice a month also. That's fairly easy to figure out. I think that your idea of showing up as the committee is vital.
Yeah.
I also have students in district. I have students that have been bullied for other reasons, but essentially it comes back to their identity. And we have had no adequate reactions or responses from the administration. the thing that's really troubling about this is that this is clearly something that DEI is focused on bringing to light. And it seems not unrelated that this is the also an effort to dismantle DEI, is so that there isn't this level of accountability and representation. So, yeah, I think that we need to stand up, and whatever we can do. I mean, if you want me to figure out when the next meeting is, we should go and we can sort of, maybe we'll subcommittee this, if that's okay, Mads, and talk about just correlating an effort to show up together.
That works for me. I believe you just need a motion to form the subcommittee.
Motion to form a subcommittee to show up and represent the DEIC at the school board meetings.
I get it.
Do we do all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay,
Oh, Kimberly wants to talk.
No, that was my eye for the record.
Oh.
thank you.
There's her eye. So I would be willing, I would love actually to go, even if I didn't speak, but just went with you guys as a support. I feel really strongly about that. My son that was one reason why we homeschooled. And my daughter too, where they were both bullied. Or my son, my daughter was so bullied that by the time I had my son, I was like, I'm not even doing school with him. So yeah, no, I hear you. It is a thing for sure. And
Well, thank you guys for being willing to go with me. I appreciate it.
yeah, absolutely. So Mike, will you put that write it on your hand or something in
That's
your
full. They're
telephone?
full already.
And then if you can either text out, you could text, I don't know if you have Nicole's phone number, but anyway, if we could figure it out, that'd be great. Okay, and then let's see, do we have any public comments?
We do. I've got two here, one from John Reiser and then Tabitha Basie. I'm just gonna go in the order that I received them. So I don't know if I
Did
think
John
John might have
stay?
left.
He
So
must
I
have
think
left.
that it's Tabitha.
Okay,
Can we go back one? I'm sorry.
John Reiser is not
No,
here.
back topic.
Go
Um,
back to the bullying.
Yes.
Okay,
I just wanted to express extreme empathy for the situation that you are in. Um and I hope that there's a way that these unfortunate incidents can be daylighted more so people believe that these things are happening. And I just want you to know that we stand with you, and in all this procedure and all of these other places, the humanity of it and the crappiness of it is not lost on us. And so I just wanted to make sure we had a minute for the human aspect of it, and we were able to extend love and light to you and your son.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Kimberly.
yeah. Yes, and actually I don't know, Nicole, if you would want to share this at the workshop, but that might be something that would be really good to be
Okay. I'd be
shared.
willing to do that.
I don't know how many people are going to be here, but I mean, the more the better they hear it, that this is going on, and this is front and center DEI. So
And just to give you real time, of course, there's a meeting tomorrow at 8 p.m. that says a special session. I don't know what that means or who that includes, but I can look into that and ask some questions about it. But it's at 8 o'clock tomorrow at the high school. So I'll try and find out some more information about that. Go ahead.
and
Yeah, it's always open to the public.
Even their special sessions?
That's a good question.
8 PM, you said?
Yeah.
Wow, that's late for a meeting. Maybe they don't want anyone to attend.
Special
Um,
session is open to the public. Executive session is closed to the public. So,
So
Okay.
that well, so it reads here as the special session is at 8 to 8:05. And the
Mhm.
executive is 8:05 to 8:35. So I'm
Yeah.
assuming that you just show up and it's like public comment essentially,
yes,
to sort of set off the meeting and then they kick everybody out. Is that kind of how it works?
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, well, that sounds like it's, yeah, not very. Okay, so Mike, you'll follow up on that and we'll tentatively write it on
Yeah,
our calendars
That's,
to be
I
there.
have my own list of things that I'd like to bring up to the school board as well. So we should take that opportunity when we have it.
Do you know where in the high school they meet?
It's not hard to find.
Okay.
No, I don't.
All right, I'll figure it out. All righty, so public comment.
Thanks for being so patient, and listening to all of this.
Yeah,
And public comment at the very
I
end.
applied to be on the committee
Oh, great.
last week. So, but 1 moment.
Have you been a resident of Estacada for more than a year?
10 years.
Fantastic, because we've had some barriers to entry.
yes.
Because
Oh, my first year moving here, I was not wanting to get involved in committees and stuff like that. So
Right.
I don't think most people in their first year are, just trying to figure out where things are
Mhm.
and how things work, not
Mhm.
interested in getting involved just yet.
Right.
Most. Anyway, I changed my brightness and lost my speech. There we go. Am I limited to 3 minutes? Should I
Nope.
speed up my talking or?
You're good.
Awesome. So, members of the DEIC and concerned residents, and hopefully council members who may see this. First, thank you to NAMI, if they're still here, who, the representative for expressing so clearly why this committee is desperately needed, desperately necessary. I hope they are able to speak to the city council if they haven't already been invited. I sit here representing 6 marginalized groups personally. More if you take into account each diagnosis doctors have applied to me. At some point, I start to wonder, is it really me with all these disorders, or is it the society that's having the issues? As a white female, I have the privilege to pass in white, straight, able-bodied, male-dominated spaces with less fear than most people who encounter this group. I'm late diagnosed autistic, a woman, and I have ADHD. My other identities, I prefer to keep private as possible. And if you don't know why, that's the problem. I am discouraged to hear the DEIC having to prove its worth every few months. I mean, just a few months ago, I believe there was discussion about doing away with it. Why is City Council trying to exclude my voice or advice? Some members of council seem to not even want to be advised about the issues that 2/3 of the community may have, issues I might have. Council is under no obligation to take our advice, but it seems they don't want to even hear or know that I exist. If they don't want to be advised about a possible need in our community for a handicap ramp or suicide prevention, or more than pork hot dogs should be served at an event, what the heck are they doing on the city council? Advisory committees are meant to advise. And I know at least one member of this council knows this because Ms. Wagner, the city manager, covered this on January 6th, 2025 at a Civics Academy meeting, our very first meeting. So at least one member that I heard speak against this committee knows exactly that it's to advise and not to hire people or whatever. My voice may be a whisper in the national discourse, but in my city, I will be heard. And I recently have made positive assumptions. Excuse me. Until recently, I have made positive assumptions about council members and that they were representing me. So I didn't get involved. But it's becoming evident some desire to exclude me and the marginalized groups I represent among everybody else. I may be one voice sitting in front of this committee, but many snowflakes create a blizzard. And I assure you, I am not alone. It's much easier for us all to work together to keep Estacada a small town than for me to knock on every resident's door, contact newspapers, radio stations, and outside activists. I would like to end this issue within our community, so I propose the DAIC is codified into our charter so that we don't have to keep having this issue. I urge you, deal with your emotions and work through your fear to work with me and the 2/3 of residents similar to me. At least hear the voices of Estacada residents. As a personal note, my daughter had to leave Estacada schools because she was constantly coming home because she was so upset about the bullying and she was the one speaking out. We took her and we put her into Estacada Summit Learning Charter, which she still receives some having to stand up for some people, but not nearly as bad as it was in our public school. And this was like 9, 10 years ago. Excuse me. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. As an adult, I've been very proud of how she's conducted herself and stood up for people, including running over and charging a man who was going after 2 young girls under her charge at her work and knocking him into the soda machine until more help could be provided to her to prevent that. So when I heard about your son, the anger, the fury, the rage, I know this happens. And I can't do anything about it on the national stage. But here, I will be heard. And if that means knocking on every door, I will do it. If that means creating the headline, City Council is accused of misogyny, homophobia, and racism, I will do it. You will not silence me. You can threaten me. I don't give a. Anybody who is watching this who knows that I stood up to David Weatherall, who used to own the gun shop, who chased me and my daughter into our house and I held him off at gunpoint. I went through 2 years of court because I wasn't going to back down from that bully. I went through the police and other citizens driving by my house, harassing me and bothering my daughter. So if I'm going to go through that, just imagine what I'm going to do if you try to take away my voice. That's it. Do you have any questions?
No,
Thanks.
thank you very much.
And the person online, does she have any?
Kimberly, do you have any questions or comments?
I don't. I'm I think I'm as speechless as my fellow committee members.
I want to thank you very much. Tell me your name again. Tabitha, thank you very, very much. Yeah, my son graduated from Summit. He was my homeschooled, well, my second homeschooled kid, but we actually had a very good experience there. It would have been very different in our schools in town. So I hear you. What I would say is please come to the meeting on the 24th. We're having a workshop and community members, as far as I know, I don't, the rules haven't been told to me. So if we have a workshop, can community members speak?
I mean, if it's the same as the city council meeting, it will not be public comment, but there's immediately following it. If that's on our date, is a city council meeting. I haven't been told of a workshop yet.
Okay.
But usually no public comment during the workshop, but immediately afterward at the city council meeting, you can make a comment.
So if you have the time to come and support and tell, like you said, tell who you know that would stand up for the committee. The workshop, community members can be here for that and listen to what we go through. And then afterwards, they're going to be voting on the status of this committee, whether or not this will stay a committee or whether it will be turned into something like maybe an ad hoc. So it's all in flux right now, and that's why all the applications that were turned in, we are not considering until our March meeting because of the
Did you
meeting.
submit an application already?
Yes.
Yes.
Can we motion to approve her application? I'm sorry, I'm assuming your pronoun. Can we approve to
I have a bunch of applications.
Yeah, we have.
for
one.
DEI?
They're
Yeah.
gonna be on the agenda for the March meeting.
So can we move to just, or there's more than we have
There's
vacancies for?
several applications.
Well, that's wildly encouraging.
Very encouraging.
I just want to be as proactive as possible so that we can show up with, here. I know this is out of order as far as commissioner comments. What I'm hearing is that everyone who's personally involved in this effort has some kind of attachment to this work. Whether it's your kids or your own identity or your aspirations for the community. We're all trying to move forward together. And so the level of essentially indignation and gaslighting that's being thrown back is it's very transparent, and it's going to take an organized and concerted effort. And there's all these little battles that happen all over the place. So it sounds like there's a lot of support, and it sounds like people are circling the wagons, so to speak. But it's also time to bond together and work together and help represent your neighbor. So yeah, as long as, I guess we can't get those applications approved for the agenda for the meeting on the 24th.
We're doing it in March. We're doing it in March so that we know the
Okay.
status.
Um,
Yeah. But we can mention at our workshop how many applications we have, right? We can at least let them know that.
Okay.
The way that it looks on my end of things, that if they waive that residency requirement and all of the applications that we have get approved, we have at least including Tammy, question mark, one more application than we have available spots.
Okay. Great. All right, well, that at least sounds like sort of an order of operation. Yes, please. Will you come into the microphone, please?
People tell me I don't need one. My name's Julie Battle. I've been an estigator about 3.5 years.
I do.
trying to get sort of the lay of the land. So you may have seen me at city council meetings recently. After the first council meeting I went to, and the subject of residency came up. And after the meeting, I went to the mayor, and I think some of the council members were still lingering. And I said, you know, I think maybe I might have a solution for this issue. I hear you saying that you need volunteers, and yet you're kind of beating your head against the wall because people are volunteering, but you're not accepting them. So I said, why don't, instead of, in lieu of making people live here at least 12 months, in my opinion, you could be here 6 months or 6 years and not really know anymore. It's not the issue of longevity on how long you've been a resident. It's more, do you know the community? Do you know what the goals and aspirations of the community are? So I just made a suggestion that perhaps they put together a very simple, could be online, not quiz, but here's who we are, here's what our goals are. And people will then be familiar with the community's goals instead of making it how long you've lived here.
Right.
That suggestion was sort of met with resistance, because it was clear to me that some council members just didn't want to hear that. They wanted people to have that 1 year. The other short story I want to add to that is at the next council meeting, I heard, and I'm going to name names because why not? The mayor said, well, we need more volunteers. So if we dismantle this committee, then why don't we just take those people and they can volunteer for another committee? And I couldn't say anything, but I thought, time out. I volunteered for this committee. This is where I have a professional background. This is where my passion comes. Don't tell me just go over there and help us. So I found that to be a very interesting input from the mayor, that it's like, we want bodies and we'll tell you where, it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. And then the proof of why this committee should stay is the amount of applicants. I mean, people are putting their antenna up about things not being quite kosher.
Yeah.
And so people are very interested in this particular subject. I don't know, because I'm still new. I don't know what the fear is, but in my experience, when people become resistant to new things, there's a fear base. I don't know what their fear is.
Right.
And that would be my number one question. Why are you fighting so hard against this?
Mm-hmm.
What possible harm can this do?
Bring that question to the council meeting. That would
Okay.
be a public speaker. Really, honestly, that is powerful to be able to ask those questions with an expectation of an answer, because it is very frustrating. This is not our first rodeo.
And
We've been through this a few times now.
just to add to public record, you're speaking about the dichotomy of the mayor being adamantly and on the record in favor of continuing the DEI effort 7 months ago, and now having a 180 shift on that as of the most recent city council meeting. So it's vital that we show up and create public record and speak about it, because that gives us some actual counteraction to this, the emails that we hear about all the people who are so threatened by and fearful of the DEI effort, even considering the fact that we have literally shaped our own committee to address inclusivity issues specific to Estacada. And it has not had anything sort of relating to the stigma of the national paradigm. So I think that all the points you're making are incredibly vital,
Very.
and you need to, you're
We have a
preaching to the
huge
choir
PR
here,
campaign problem
right?
with DEI.
Right.
And that to me is the alpha omega of the whole thing.
Right, and we tried to rebrand a year ago,
Yeah, we did.
based on Nicole's recommendation of like what to, and we voted on it, and we call our, and it's not anything we're gonna escape. So yeah, it's time to essentially push back.
Yeah, and we're facing national,
That's correct. We heard about
Mess.
we
which
heard
doesn't help.
repeatedly about a national mandate, and I don't
Yep.
think that that holds up in Estacada city politics. Not with any verifiable weight.
Yeah, thank you, Julie.
Sure,
And,
thank you.
we have had meetings that I've attended actually where it's been standing room only. They've had all the chairs set up and every one of them was filled with people standing. So, just what I would suggest is let people know, people that have a heart for DEI and want to see this committee continue need to stand up now because it is going to go away unless people come and support this committee. Yeah, sure, go ahead. And then we probably better wrap up.
All right. The amount of available seats on other committees are 4. I looked 2 days ago because my wife asked for some clarity on that. Like, well, how many, like, do we need other people on these other committees? No, we don't. We actually have 3 seats, I believe, available on this committee. So this committee is not even full. We have applicants, but it's not full. So to take us and assume that our passion is going to be for the budget or any other thing that we have an option to see is ridiculous. Knowledge is one of the things that keeps people from getting involved, even knowing about this. I didn't know about the meeting, and I've been trying to keep up as much as I can on social media. I didn't even know about the meeting on Sunday until I watched the council thing about wanting to do away with this committee. And then I found out about this, and so I'm here. So one is knowledge. The next is anxiety, because I have 3 friends who aren't here today because of anxiety. They want to speak. They want to be heard and they want to be represented, but they are not able to speak for themselves.
Can they speak through Zoom? Would they be willing to do that? Because
I can
usually
ask.
they won't be seen. See, it'll be just like that where their name might be there.
I can ask, but as an autistic person, Zoom takes just as much out of me as being here in person or even
Right.
thinking about being here in person.
Yeah. Okay.
I was also curious, I don't know much about the mayor. I don't know much about the city council. Is the mayor married?
Yes.
Okay.
No,
No.
he's not married.
Okay.
He
He's in a
was.
domestic partnership, I think.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I mean,
thought
I
they were
don't,
married.
they have different last names. That's all I'll say. I'm not sure.
Presumably to a woman.
Yes.
Also,
So my question, hopefully he hears this, my question to him directly would be, why do you want to silence her voice? Because she is also diverse and deserves inclusion and equity. The city manager said when she started the Civics Academy, that she'd been wanting to do that for 10 years. So that's another issue is that, great, we signed up, but there's only like 18 seats and I'm not sure if they were all filled. But the only place I saw it was on social media, and that's only because I happened to look at it that day. And that's it.
Okay. So I was here Sunday and Heidi, there were quite a few seats that they listed that were open on committees, is that like an old list or something?
There are a lot of seats that were open, a lot of people whose terms were ending.
Okay,
Mm.
so our terms on all the committees, right, end
all
at the end of
ended.
March. So like mine is up in March, hers was up in March, but we both reapplied. And then there are other committees who are up, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 members are, so they're kind of scattered throughout the years, but the end of March is the term. So it may not show right now that there's a bunch of seats open, but there
So those
will
are
be.
current seats. Those aren't the seats that are going to be vacated.
Right, yeah.
The
It's
question I would have then is, is the school board going to have, or the school committee, excuse me, going to have a seat available?
that I don't know. That would be through the school, not the
Okay.
city, I believe.
Mhm.
So there's not a district committee here, it's through the school?
Not here, it would be
Okay.
through the school district, yeah.
And the other question is there any room for an interim council? For instance, the people who have shown up tonight to consider. I'm not sure what the charter or the rules are, so I will leave you guys to.
I'm not sure I understood her question.
Sorry.
We could maybe,
Is there room for an interim committee member to sit? And since there's spaces available now, and then give up that seat?
Oh, no,
Or-
no. So the people who are applying would be filling the seats at the end of March. Those terms for another 2 years, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
so we're
So
gonna,
there's no room for interim?
we're looking at the applications for everyone that applied for like DEIC specifically at our March meeting, which I believe is March 3rd.
Mhm.
And then whoever the committee recommends for approval, that will go to the city council at their March meeting for them to approve it. And then
Yeah.
those people will be able to begin serving at the following meeting.
But we didn't want to look at applications at this meeting because of what has transpired, what we've
And-
been thrown into again.
Also because we needed to look at budget goals and we had a
Yes, that
45-minute
too.
presentation.
Yes, we had a lot to do and we were supposed to be done at 6, so. We are going to end the meeting, but thank you all for your comments and thank you, Matt, and thank you, Kimberly. And does anyone else have comments before we sign off? No. Okay. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.